Greetings, YouTube. More specifically, members of the Temple of the Adversarial Forge. I'm starting this vlog this evening basically because my spiritual work is taking me to some very interesting places. And also, through that creation, other things are being utterly destroyed within myself, within my life. It's a rough process, but really the main issue is I'm getting down to the brass tacks of who I am, okay? And so I wanted to do something positive with that energy, express myself a little bit, you know. So I figured this would be a good opportunity to do that. What this channel is or isn't, it's a question I really can't answer at this point. I know for the most part I would describe it most likely as subjective spiritual experience through the work of black magic, through extensive work that sometimes beats me down. So some might call me or describe me as going unhinged from time to time. Definitely. So expect that. But this is it's subjective experience. Whether people call it right or wrong, it's irrelevant. You're going to get bits and pieces, examples of some of my work. Different self-empowerment exercises that I receive through spirits that I work with. Of course, these are things I'm licensed to share. It's going to be chaos, really. Expect that. But I know I'll benefit from it. And I think a few other people will too. So that's the most important part. Now, let's get this intro shit out of the way. It's called experience. As I mentioned in another interview, I didn't really get into the occult, it got into me. As a child, I was haunted through night terrors and encounters with spiritual entities. I ran to my mom's room. Go to bed, son. It's just your imagination. Well, I did, you know, I went to bed and still scared out of my mind. Seeing wraiths. Feeling eyes upon me all the time. So I was always kind of aware of external forces as a child. I believe this fear is actually what eventually led to my diabetes. I mean, that's just my personal thought. Which was a blessing in disguise, in my opinion, because it's what caused me to stay active, you know. and to take care of myself, and it was a way to take control of those demons because they manifested as something that I could control with enough will and effort. My spiritual path really began studying martial arts. Most definitely. I started with Taekwondo at the age of 7. And the physical technique, the performance of the art was great for self-discipline. But at the same time, I was always curious about what drove it, because I was always aware of this spiritual essence through combat arts. So while most kids were reading comic books, I was reading the Tao Te Ching. I was reading Tao Jeet Kune Do. I was reading Thoreau. I was reading the Bible. Anything I could get my hands on in regard to candle magic and witchcraft. But it was all dabbling, basically reading to gain intelligence. Lit a candle a few times and did manifest some small things, but it's nothing that I really put any effort into. It was more about learning philosophy at that point. It was the philosophy behind the martial arts. How is it applicable to life's circumstances? How could I apply it to create positive change in my life? So naturally, I turned to Zen and Taoism, Shinto, Buddhism, different forms of meditation. And I got it for the most part. I figured out how to apply these things to my life. But it did not change the fact that I was dealt a pretty bad hand. I won't really get into that too much. But let's face it, those of us on the path of power usually do start from a state of powerlessness. That feeling of powerlessness, I should say. My martial arts training has always been a part of my life. But then I manifested this instructor in Junfei and Jeet Kune Do concepts and Filipino martial arts. And this guy was a Christian, but he was teaching me the different concepts to increase one's attributes as a fighter. And I would be studying Oriental Eastern philosophy and Bruce Lee's thoughts on JKD and trying to apply these things to life using combat as an analogy. That's what I would do. That was my big thing, to really break this stuff down into symbols of life and the life experience. Because if you're going to compare life to anything, it's not going to be a ballroom fucking dance. It's a street fight. It's a fight to survive. But see, that's what bugged me. That's what bugged me about the confines of all of these religions, including my martial arts instructor's Christianity, was within all these dogmatic approaches. I was confined. The traits that made me me were suppressed. I mean, as a person, you want to grow, right? You start out as a child and you grow. You want to achieve goals, move forward in life. You want to get from one point to the next. Well, my big beef was, how can I get from here to there if I'm afraid of harming the grass on the way to reaching the destination? This was unnatural to me. The world is beautiful, yes. There's bunnies, rabbits, trees, sunshine. But there's also the predatory, cyclical nature that cannot be denied. I have to consume something to move forward. I have to destroy something to create. It's just the way it is. I mean, this is what life's experience was telling me. But all of these spiritual paths were not. I eventually manifested my own martial arts school, so I moved to Texas. I met my first official initiator into witchcraft at that point and began training in Wicca under her, based on my. Through her, I was eventually ordained the High Priest of the Coven of the Primal Dawn, based out of Amarillo, Texas. Now, at that point in my time studying with her, I was also working under Oberon Zell's Grey School of Wizardry. Seriously. The New Order of the Druids. I was working draconian magic, dragon magic, and I was studying draconian energies and working with them heavily. And even my witchcraft in regard to Wicca was always more draconian and chthonic. Now, as our coven substantiated, this particular Christian hate group called Repent Amarillo called out my high priestess. And threatened her physical well-being through slander. These people were infamous for following spouses to work and harassing them, all in the name of Christ. They were following husbands to strip bars, taking down license plate numbers. It was a complete abuse of power. So we decided to call them out on Samhain. We held a public Samhain ritual, and we let all these people show up. We invited them to protest, and I wanted to get hardcore. Thanks to I decided not to get so rough, I should say. But it was a wonderful experience because we stood up for something. And it was at that point that I died. I died publicly that day. I died to all involvement with right-hand path, limitations, and dogma, as well as left-hand path, limitations, and dogma. I decided to walk the path of all others. And I was officially reborn as a black magician. Now at that point I was also working under Dragon Rouge. And soon after that, the Order of Phosphorus. I worked briefly with Asenath Mason in the Temple of Ascending Flame. That was an intense experience, as brief as it was. Catapulted me. I'd work with Mark Allen Smith's material very, very consistently. But a lot of my work is personal. It's gained through gnosis and direct contact with the demons that I summon and call forth. It's powerful stuff to me. But that's my experience. I mean, those are some of the things that have inspired me along the way and led me to where I am. It's a cluster. Now things are getting a little more focused. I'm happy about that. And you folks I'm working with correspondence, get your questions to me. I'll try to answer them here. I want to try and crank out a couple more videos real quick, but until next time, infernal blessings to you and yours. In nomine Draconis.